All right, welcome back. Back with a quick little news of the day video here for you guys. We've had a very busy past couple of days since my last upload. Not exactly the type of news that I was expecting. I was more so anticipating some more news about the 23 Savage situation, especially since, since then, my last video, Cuckoo has retracted his statement saying that he was off the team, meaning that 23 Savage, as of right now, is still on the team. And given that we are less than a week away from those regional playoffs starting in Southeast Asia, which start on February 11th, I'd imagine that T1 might be trying to hold off a little bit until after those regional playoffs are complete. Making a last-minute change to the roster could have some pretty detrimental effects. It's possible. And of course, with DPC points on the line in these regional playoffs, it's possible that they're just trying to avoid that. As for his replacement, of course, we've heard plenty of rumors and leaks regarding it being very likely Anna coming in and replacing him. But it seems over the past couple of days, we've been hearing more and more revolving around Gabby being his possible replacement. Gabby, obviously previously on Talon, who didn't exactly have the best tour in that lower division. However, Gabby still had a pretty fantastic tour. Definitely probably the best player on his team in that tour. But yeah, as of right now, we don't exactly know. T1 could entirely come out tomorrow and say that they're going to make roster changes. But as of right now, that's where that whole thing is. As for jumping in the actual news that we have happening, we have this first story coming out regarding Team Spirit, mainly one of the players on Team Spirit. And I will preface this by saying, do take this with a grain of salt. This is in the very early stages of this story's development. We have only heard one side of the story. And so until we start getting some more information, please be very cautious about what's going on in this situation. I will be here to update you guys when we get more information. But as of right now, I am merely reporting on what has happened, which is not very much. So again, please take this with a grain of salt. And this story revolves around Collapse, mainly around his ex-girlfriend, who just yesterday made an Instagram post where she essentially was blaming him for becoming very cold and distant ever since his win at TI-10, and for essentially abandoning her and their now child, who is going to be on the way since she is pregnant. These are some pretty hefty accusations to be throwing around, and again, no statement yet from Collapse himself, so we do not know how credible this is. We do not know if there is another side of the story. So again, very early on in this. There has been a statement from Team Spirit themselves, just kind of the classic PR stuff, talking about how they will not tolerate any sort of slander towards their team, or they protect all of their players. But of course, because we have not heard anything from Collapse, that is going to be pretty typical. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff there. Pretty hefty stuff. We'll see how this develops, as this is quite a serious one. So yeah. Now moving on to some more lighthearted news, we have the director of esports from Hellraisers basically going through and talking about the process of coming up with an ulterior for the first major, which was obviously canceled just a few weeks ago, talking about the process that they went through with Valve in particular, and how they had reached out to just the managers of Hellraisers and Team Spirit regarding this new format, and that they were essentially presenting this new format while sort of asking for feedback, but also it seemed that they already had this whole format cemented. They just wanted the okay from the teams, which is a little strange that they had only reached out to Hellraisers and Team Spirit, which he had also talked about was a thing that had potentially caused some jealousy in some of the other teams that were not reached out to, especially some other teams in the top four like PUCChamp and Virtus.Pro, who apparently were not talked to. However, Virtus.Pro and Na'Vi seemed to be more on the positive end of things, that we were at least getting some sort of communication from Valve, even if it didn't directly involve them, which I think is kind of funny because, they didn't even reach out to a team like Virtus.Pro, and they're still pretty happy with the way that things are going now just because we are getting some more of that feedback. So yeah, pretty interesting stuff. Let's hope that this is something that continues to improve with time with the communication with Valve. And all the best from here. Again, I think it's kind of funny that they didn't even reach out to some of the big name teams like Virtus.Pro, and they weren't exactly offering any sort of counter format for the one that we're going to be having in the next couple weeks. They were just looking for the okay for that, which is kind of a one-sided discussion, and yet everyone is receiving this extremely positively. So it just kind of goes to show how messed up things kind of were for a little while there. And again, we're hoping that everything continues to progress in the right direction from here. Next little bit of news, kind of revolving around the same thing that I was just talking about, revolving around the pro scene and the way that Valve handles it and just the general health of it. We have Slacks, who had a fantastic interview, which is over on Esports.com, linked down below, as well as everything that I talk about today in this video, as per usual, of course. It's a fantastic read. It's a pretty long one, and I thought he had some pretty interesting points when it comes to, the way things were running. Nothing new, nothing that we haven't heard before, kind of touching on some of the things that Quinn notably had talked about on his live stream, notably that one quote talking about how Valve essentially has all of the teams and players hostage in an air chamber, and then every now and then they'll drop in a little bit and only the best get to eat, or best get a little piece of what was dropped in. So Slacks essentially talked about how he was comparing this to the very capitalist system where we have the top 1% who are very happy with the way things work because they have a chance at that big pool. That being, of course, TI, which of course is the biggest prize pool in all of esports and all of Dota 2 as well, whereas the rest of the year is really meager when it comes to overall prize pool, funding, and how there's just a real lack of money in it. Talking about how if you're not in that 1%, you are the one that's typically complaining about how things should be distributed a little bit more. However, teams that are in that 1%, teams and players that do have a chance at actually making it to TI and making deep runs at TI, typically will not be the ones that complain. And so until we start hearing some more things from players that are in that 1%, players like Puppy, like Arteezy, like Ice, just to name a few that Slacks himself had mentioned, there's no real incentive for them to want to change things, because they obviously are the main players that have been around for such a long time that have been really benefiting off of this current system. And so until we start to hear some change wanted from players like them, it's very unlikely that we're actually going to see any change with the way that things are currently run, which is pretty unfortunate, and it kind of leaves me a little bit, wondering if that is going to actually happen. Are we going to finally have players kind of starting to stick up, or are we just going to keep the system that we've had for this point, for this long at this point, for the future? But yeah, anyways, I thought that was interesting. Again, feel free to read it in the description. I thought it was a great read, and yeah. Next up, just some light news coming up. The rest of this stuff kind of being a little fluff news. First little bit of news is some pretty fantastic news coming up from Ragdoll, who of course finished unfortunately in the lower division of the first tour in Southeast Asia. They lost their tiebreakers to both Polaris and Enigma Galaxy, which, although it sucks for them, they have come out and said that they've got some new sponsors, and with that they're going to be rebranding to Team Orca. This is actually not their logo. I thought it was when I drew it, and I didn't feel like redrawing it. It's very similar though. It's essentially just an orca with the word Orca next to it, so I left it there. But yeah, they're going to be rebranding, and again, best of luck with their new sponsors. That's fantastic news for them. They were one of the better teams in that lower division, which was really fantastic, especially since they came through those open qualifiers. And it's been a real treat to watch. Best of luck to them in the next tour, that they're able to make it into that upper division. As again, if you are not someone that watches the lower division, typically these guys are one of the better ones in Southeast Asia in particular. So yeah. Next up, Guvnor. If you are someone that watches a lot of DPC Dota, specifically in Western Europe, Guvnor, one of the talent members, occasionally an analyst on a casting panel. He unfortunately will not be attending the regional playoffs for Western Europe, which, same as Southeast Asia, take place on the 11th to the 13th, due to the fact that he tested positive for COVID. So pretty unfortunate news there. He's been a pretty fantastic talent member that is pretty recently been picked up too. He hasn't really been around the pro scene, in my knowledge, for as long as some of the other ones, at least as a talent member. So it's kind of unfortunate to hear that, but here's to a speedy recovery to him. I hear he's doing a lot better now than he was. So yeah, hopefully we see him in the next tour. And last little bit of news, we have actually JimQ going on stream recently, talking to his chat and answering a few questions that they had for him. Kind of a lot of stuff revolving around some of the things that we've been hearing from him from interviews from after TI-10, talking about the process of TI-10, what exactly happened, how could they have improved. And JimQ, just all around being a fantastic guy, talking about how, the team really played their best, but they just weren't able to play well enough. When people were asking him about banning Magnus, they said, well, the Magnus hero, sure, it may have been strong, but we just didn't play well enough. And specifically him highlighting Ame and how well Ame had played throughout that entire tournament, how he thought that PSG.LGD on the surface looked like a really fantastic team, but essentially it was just Ame being the best player on that team, and it was just really him. So all around, some pretty nice, heartwarming stuff to hear from JimQ, who is really turning out to be a really nice guy. So again, the whole thing going on after TI was kind of unfortunate. But I'm really glad that he is really bonding with the rest of his team there. And I'm sure he's just as hungry now as he was, if not more, for that TI-11 title. And so we'll see how they go from here. PSG.LGD are looking right back where they were in the last tour. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, some heavier topics in this video here that I encourage you guys to not read too much into as of yet until we get some more information. And again, once we do get that information, I will be making more videos regarding that. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in each and every day. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow with another video. Bye.